Good evening. This is the Centennial Community Association's general meeting for Tuesday, November 16th, 2021. Sorry, I'm pausing while I figure out how to share my screen so we can get to the agenda for the evening. But I don't seem to have, oh, there it is, okay. What is, sorry, this is not as smooth as normal, okay. Okay, I have to ask, is everybody now seeing the guidelines for virtual meetings?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. Just a little bit of a few guidelines for our virtual meetings. Upon entering, all participants, if you have a question, please use the chat box. Video, feel free to turn on or leave off as you feel comfortable. This meeting is being recorded. We will later post it on our YouTube account. We will also post our meeting minutes to the CCA website. You can see the URL down there below. For those of you who are new, this is the Centennial Community Association. We roughly border Stark Street to the north, all the way down to the north side of Powell Butte, and we run roughly from 143rd to 174th. And here's an agenda for our evening tonight. We have just a couple items to discuss tonight. The first will be a couple representatives from PBOT and the Portland Police Bureau. Then we'll hear about our CCA CNET community survey update. And then finally, we're going to have a little community safety discussion. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Shayna Hobbs from PBOT.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Shayna Hobbs. I am the coordinator of the Automated Traffic Enforcement System at the Portland Bureau of Transportation. And my colleague, Sergeant John Holbrook, is here as well. I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, I'm John Holbrook with the Portland Police Bureau. I'm assigned to the traffic division. I've been there for a number of years. I supervise the enforcement program and the traffic investigation unit. I'm also one of the supervisors for the major crash team. So we respond to all the fatal crashes in the city of Portland. In addition to those jobs, I'm also on our crisis negotiation team. So I get to wear a couple different hats at the Bureau. It's kind of fun, I enjoy it.
Thank you. And I'm just going to give an overview of the expansion of our automated traffic enforcement system, share some details, and then there will be some time for any Q&A. And Sergeant Holbrook and I should be able to answer any questions you might have. And if not, we can get back to you after the meeting. All right, I am going to share my screen now. Oh, could you please give me permission to share, Dan? Thank you. Okay. All right, is everyone seeing that presentation? Okay. Okay, well, thank you everyone for making time for us this evening to talk about the automated traffic enforcement system expansion. This is something that the Portland Police Bureau and Portland Bureau of Transportation have been working on for quite some time. As you know, we already have several cameras around the city of Portland. We have 10 red light cameras and 8 fixed speed cameras. So this June, the city of Portland signed a new contract with our vendor to expand the system to have 20 intersection safety cameras, and 20 fixed speed cameras around the city. And I'll dig into this a little bit more, but we'll have a new camera type. So instead of the red light cameras just enforcing red lights, they'll have a new feature. I'll talk about that in a second. So this new contract is also going to provide the city with improved data. So we'll be able to see, the zip codes of, who is receiving traffic citations. And so that will help us provide better education throughout the community and know kind of where a driver is coming from when they're speeding in Portland. And then we'll also be able to have better data about the speeds as people approach the fixed speed cameras before they actually go through and possibly get a citation if they're speeding. So there's a sign that you might see when you approach a fixed speed camera that tells you what your speed is. We'll now be able to get data from those signs. It's a small detail, but for us data nerds, it's very exciting. And I just noticed that I have a slight typo here on this. So this says 149th Avenue in Stark. It's supposed to say 148th, and I apologize. So we will have a new camera type. The red light cameras that we have throughout the city, some of them will be decommissioned based on crash data, and some of them will be upgraded to enforce speed and red light. So, our most dangerous intersections throughout the city will have an additional tool to reduce driver speeds, which we know is a major contributor to fatal crashes in our city. And then these are some of the intersections where we have tentatively decided to upgrade the cameras. So I just want to always provide a disclaimer that these things are subject to change based on, construction limitations and other things. So some of these cameras throughout the city, you can expect that in the next 2 to 3 years, they'll be upgraded to also enforce speed. And then I also have an image of 122nd Avenue in Stark. So the reason that I wanted to present to the Centennial Community Association is because 2 of the first cameras that we'll be installing under this new contract will be at 148th Avenue in Stark and 122nd Avenue in Stark, which are consistently within our top 5 most dangerous intersections in the city. They continually see fatal crashes. So we're really looking forward to getting these on the ground. So right now we're under design review. So we haven't built anything yet. We have our contract signed with our new vendor. They are providing us with the engineering plans, and it's all very complex equipment. And so there's just a lot of rounds of design and review and design and review. And so we're hoping to break ground on the first camera in December. Once that's live, I'll make sure to reach out to Dan to let everybody in Centennial Community Association know that camera is live. So just to give a little sneak peek here, this map shows some of our locations that we've identified for the first 6 cameras. So you'll see the locations on Stark, but we're also planning to put fixed speed cameras on Columbia Boulevard near 33rd Avenue and along Sandy at around 76th Avenue. So I would say within the next 6 months, we expect those cameras to be installed. But as I said, I think that's always tentative. We've got a really rainy season ahead of us, and so it's difficult to cure concrete in the winter. So tentatively, let's say within the next 6 months. And so one question that we get a lot is, can you put a camera on my street? And unfortunately, while we will have 40-ish cameras throughout the city, it is a small amount compared to the requests that we get. So We are using crash data to locate our cameras on our most dangerous intersections and streets throughout the city. And additionally, we have another tool, which is our mobile speed van, which is operated by Portland Police Bureau. And if you have questions, John will be able to provide more information about the speed vans. So we have a couple of tools to enforce speed and prevent red light running throughout the city. But we use crash data as our primary criteria for locating these cameras. And so people always ask, how effective are these cameras? Do they actually slow people down? So this graph is, it doesn't have all of the dates of when the speed studies were done, but over the last 4 or 5 years, we've done several speed studies that show significant decreases in speeding where our cameras are throughout the city. And so these are just the fixed speed cameras. We don't have this data near our red light cameras, but once we begin enforcing speed at those locations, we'll have that data as well. And I'll share some links in the chat at the end of where you can get data about our speed cameras that's updated every quarter by our data analyst. And then just a little bit more data, after 2 to 4 years, we see a 94% reduction in top end speeding, which is 11 miles per hour or more over the speed limit. So that's really encouraging data, and we're excited to help make our streets safer by adding more cameras throughout the city. So right now, we're trying to do some outreach about these cameras to let people know that they're coming, to provide information about what to do if you get a citation. So on PBOT's website, we've provided guides in multiple languages, Chinese, Vietnamese, Spanish, and Russian, that guide people what to do when you get a citation. We're hoping to add more languages as well. And at the end, I would love to just open the floor to any suggestions of groups in the Centennial neighborhood or nearby neighborhoods where we should be reaching out, letting people know these cameras are coming. I plan to do some outreach in partnership with the Rosewood Initiative. So that's another organization I've identified in the neighborhood. Additionally, we'll be sending out mailers, posting on Nextdoor, and then doing presentations with any organization that will give us the time. And then also we'll be working with our Safe Routes to School team to provide social media toolkits to let families know that these cameras are coming, because we don't want to surprise anybody. And that's it. And now I just want to kind of open the floor up to any questions you may have. And then I'll also send a couple of links in the chat.
Thank you for sharing. I've noticed that most of those cameras tend to be westbound. Does that have anything to do with, I would imagine, morning commutes as opposed to evening commutes?
I'm not entirely sure about the direction. So typically when the places where we've placed our fixed speed cameras, we have 8 fixed speed cameras in kind of like opposing directions. So on Marine Drive, we have them eastbound and westbound, and then northbound and southbound on 122nd Avenue, east and west on Beaverton Hillsdale Highway. And then I am spacing on the last pair, but I know we have them in both directions. It'll come to me in a moment, I know it. And then for the red light cameras, typically at intersections, we just enforce one direction. And it might it may be based, maybe there's the most crashes, you know, westbound, just because that's where most of the traffic is headed and that's where the most crashes happen. But I don't know if that's specifically tied to morning commutes.
Gina, I can handle that one for you. And actually, I had not even looked at whether they were eastbound and westbound, but you are absolutely right. They're thinking about it. The vast majority are westbound on the west and eastbound corridors. When they were put in, these cameras were put in a long time ago and have not been changed or updated for a long time. So that's why when we recently looked at the crash data, we realized that a lot of these cameras, the crash data in those intersections had drastically dropped off. Portland first started the red light camera back in 2001. So it's been 20 years since some of these cameras have been put in. When they put them in, they were looking at crash data, and I know they looked at directional crash data. So to be honest with you, I don't know whether they looked at time of day when the crashes happen. When we were recently looking at crash data on different approaches, actually PBOT did a lot of the work as far as which direction crashes were occurring. We weren't particularly concerned with what time of the day versus if they were happening and with what frequency they were happening. About half of the cameras that we currently have, we're going to move. And we'll hopefully those intersections that we move them from, people have gotten used to them there and will have that habit of slowing down and stopping for those signs or for the stoplights. So with luck, we won't see a drastic jump in crashes in those areas. And with where we're moving them to, hopefully we'll see the same reduction in crashes that we've seen over the past 20 years in those other intersections. If I could touch on one other spot, as far as judging the camera's efficacy, I've personally gone back and looked at a lot of the not crash data, but the citation data for both the red lights and the fixed speed cameras over the past several years. They have consistently been dropping the number of citations issued, which ultimately is what we want. Ideally, those cameras will sit there and won't have to take anybody's picture at all. And then we can take them, move them, put them someplace else. And that is similar to what has been shown in other cities. The longer a camera sits there, the fewer citations it generates. There are a couple of reasons for that. One is a lot of them are fixed. So how much of that is people just slow down and then speed up afterwards? Hopefully they're slowing down through a long stretch of the road. Another way we have to judge the efficacy is how many crashes are occurring in those stretches where those the devices are placed. And the data that we've seen shows that both the number of citations and the crashes through those areas have consistently been dropping over the years. So that's positive news for or positive outcome for the devices.
Thank you.
Sherry, I have a question. So we're having all of these different way of moving traffic on Division, and there's going to be more stoplights. So I don't know if that's impacting what you're going to look at here. The other thing, I was surprised that it's no citations until 11 miles over the speed limit. Is that right?
Yeah, and the reason we do that, we're not trying to trick anybody. Already there's a feeling or a belief that these cameras are basically just a backdoor way to tax people, which is not true. So what we do is we try to go out of our way to make sure that we're not trying to trick anybody. We're being upfront, we're being very obvious about it. Judging from everybody in the room, it looks like you all have been driving for a year or two anyway. I think that we can all agree that if we're going to come up to a stop sign or stoplight and we take off from that stoplight, it's easy to get going 5-6 miles an hour over and look down and go, oh, nuts, got to slow down a little bit. If we're going, if the speed limit is at 25 and we end up going 35, 36, it feels different. And we can look down and say, oh, wow. Or, hey, it's intentional about that point. So the reason we picked 11 is so that we are trying to be, not try to trick anybody. And because we have to be aware of the public impressions that we leave also.
I understand that, but I'm one of the ones that go by, oh, it's 30 miles an hour now on Division, so I'm in their way. So I like the effort that we're decreasing the speed out here.
Sure, and Sherry, you did remind me that the other 2 fixed speed cameras are on Division. I could not remember that, but yes, they are eastbound and westbound on Division.
Yeah, they're over by 148, so by the Fred Meyer out there.
Right by Dan and I.
Any other questions about timeline or the cameras? I'm happy to share any other information. I could also add that, we know that there will be an increase in citations when we add these cameras. And so we're really looking at what can we do to let more people know that we offer a driver education class for people who are receiving their first citation. I think it's, if they haven't had one in 3 years, is that right? Yeah, so if they haven't had a ticket in 3 years, they can attend a driver education course led by our vendor and Portland Police Bureau, and the citation will be dismissed. And so, it really goes to show, like, we're not trying to trick people. I think we just really want to change behavior and let people know that speeding is truly unsafe. So, yeah, that information is on our website too about our class, and we've provided it in multiple languages and hope to provide it in more languages.
So one thing we've found is that, there's always, humans like to say, hey, what's the one thing that's going to solve the problem? What's the magical silver bullet that's going to kill the werewolf? Rarely is that the case. And me being a cop, I like to think that enforcement is that silver bullet. But again, realize that's not the case. Enforcement is a part of it. Education is a huge part. There's been a lot of studies that show that the more education people have, the less likely they are to get into crashes. And so as an incentive to get some education, because I would dare say in the classes that I teach, I typically ask people since high school, how many have had some sort of driver education? And usually you get about 25-ish% of the class, and we gotta have upwards of 90 people in the class sometimes. About 25% of those people raise their hand and say, I've had something after high school. The more education, driver education people have, the more cautious they are, the less likely they are to be involved in crashes. That's why insurance companies will give people discounts if you go to a driver education class. So we realize, hey, if we can dismiss somebody's citation, we get the added benefit of getting some education out there. And hopefully that's one way that we can, reduce the crashes. I mentioned that I'm on the major crash team in the city of Portland. I've been pretty lucky. I've had a very interesting and rewarding career. But if I can avoid going to somebody's house at 2 or 3 in the morning and knocking on their door and telling them that a loved one will never come home again, I would be so much more happy. That's one of the worst parts of my job that I have to do. And so if phone enforcement and other things can help prevent that, great. I'm all for that.
Thank you. I'm not sure how we are doing on time. We might, because we started a little bit late. Are we at time, Dan?
You know what? I wouldn't worry too much about it because we have a pretty light meeting tonight. I would say that if we have any more questions, feel free to bring them up.
Sure. And I can also send our contact information in the chat. I'm not sure if you'll share. I don't know if the chat will be shared through the recording. I'm not sure how that works, but feel free to share our contact information with anybody who may have questions after watching the recording. Give us a call. We're happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you for joining us and for sharing and letting us know a little bit more about the traffic cameras. And it was also nice to see a little bit of, all of the thought behind traffic cameras and just learn more.
Thanks
Thank
for
you so
having us and
much.
letting us come.
All right, well, let's move on to the next item. That would be the CCA CNET survey. And I believe Jason is here to give us an update on that.
Hello. I'm speaking on behalf of Gail Palmer. Sadly, she wasn't able to make it inside this meeting, so I have the privilege of speaking to you tonight. Right now, we have in total 40 responses for the survey. We're trying to get those up more, and some of what this survey will be used for, just a reminder, the survey will be used for by the Centennial Community Association to form priorities for programs in 2022. Also, the results will be combined with the responses from all over the East Portland, and the information will be added to community resilience report coming out in this spring. So they're kind of really important to getting this information so we could get the reports, we get better information for the report. The survey committee is contacting community groups and participants for the survey so they could so we get more responses. But right now we're just trying to get as much as we possibly can. The access to the questions will continue throughout December. I will link both the Spanish version and the English version of the survey in the chat. The first one is the English version, and the second one will be the Spanish version. So if you guys can use your communication or try and bring more attention to the survey, it will be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. And do you have any update on how many responses we've had?
Yes, actually, so far we have about 40 responses. I believe we have 24 responses from physical paper, and we have 9 in English and 8 in Spanish in the online versions.
Thank you.
Where is the survey online?
It's in the link. You click on the link, it'll bring you up to a Google Doodle thing. I think that's what it's called, which you just fill out the information. The first one is in English, and the second one is in Spanish. So unless that's a little complicated, should I type out the language of each document?
So Jason, I just clicked on the English link, which I think was the first one, and it says that I need access.
Oh, okay. That's up.
So I wonder if that might be the wrong link.
Oh.
And I'm used to screwing up Google links, so welcome.
Yeah, I probably screwed it up in accident. Sorry. Give me a second. I'll link them back.
And while Jason is working on that, is there any other opportunity that we haven't thought of as a group to reach out and get more responses? Because I know that we showed up to the Rockwood Nights Out, what was that, the month of September? And I know that we've had some kind of grassroots efforts to share the survey elsewhere.
I think that we were going to send it. Sorry, I should have raised my hand.
It's okay, Teresa. Teresa, you don't have to raise your hand the rest of the night.
I think that maybe the survey sort of got a little bit different than I think what the intent was originally. And so it ended up a little bit more for safety in COVID instead of what I feel like we were looking for originally, which was just in the community, what are you looking for us to focus on as a community association? So some of the places that I originally thought that we would do it, like put posters up, say at laundromats and in, you know, different community centers or health clubs or restaurant, you know, wherever we could do it. It just didn't feel like we were getting the same information we'd originally started from. And I don't know if those were the right types of facilities or ways to get that information. Like if we're looking for COVID information, and that's really how the survey reads to me, and how that impacted you and what you wanted as a neighborhood, and kind of a long story, like a written story of how you were impacted. I don't know where we would take that. It seemed a little different, I suppose, for where we originally thought we were going to take what we were going to do with that survey. So for this one, if we're looking for how the impact of COVID was on you and what you needed from the community in the sense of a pandemic or an emergency, then maybe we need to think of putting it in other places than just within the community, you know, within Centennial. I don't know if anyone else felt similarly or if that shift was sort of known, or should we just still stick it out there and see at other places, put out flyers for that info. I know when I was at the Rosewood Community Center, it felt a little time, you know, onerous to fill out the entire survey because it's kind of asking for stories, not just clicking a box. So that is a bit difficult in timing wise for me, like, oh, like I probably were like, oh, I'm gonna have to take this home, you know. So and if you're doing it on your mobile device, like you can't really answer those questions so simply because they're not kind of yes or no answers, you know. Are you more concerned with homelessness or traffic? You know, like I kind of think that's one way we were heading originally.
Teresa.
Yeah.
Sherry and Ann and everyone. I have given it out to like my faith community and some people on the street, and they don't want to, you're right, they don't want to sit there and write everything out. And so then you never get them back. And I don't think we got hardly any back from the Rosewood when you and I sat there, and Dan and I. So I don't know what the answer is. That's we're in the middle of a survey time. It might be that we take a look at what data comes from it and see if we want to do a more easier or check the box kind of survey that'll be done quicker on top of that one. I mean, I don't know. Gail's not here and Jason's our intern, so I don't know.
What's your experience, Jason, in getting people to fill these things out?
So far, I've only been focusing on the online version of the survey and translating the information that was already given on physical paper onto the online space.
Mhm.
So I'm the person who types up all the information and puts it inside our database that we have our Google slide or sheets page. So I don't have a lot of experience specifically on the marketing side of the situation. But it sounds as though if people continue to, we don't get that big of a turnout, hopefully we could get the main points that people have been telling us that they are focusing on and make those into possible bullet notes or checkboxes. So if we don't get that much responses from this one, we could always just but we will get better information of what the critical things that they're looking for, so we can in the future possibly do another survey that gets better results.
In a simpler format, maybe?
Yes. Also, I sent in a PDF with the flyer and has a scan me QR code. if you don't want to type up all the information, all the link, because I know it's a really long link. So if there's where the survey is. Hopefully you all can see it.
So are you sharing the link right now? Is that what you mean? That we all can see it? Because I don't see it.
It's I'm in the chat, I think.
It's in the chat.
Oh, I'm not in the chat. Well, is it also I'm on the CCA website, I guess it's eastportland.org. I don't see a link on that. Should it be there? Or am I not looking in the right place?
Good question, Robert. I don't think it is yet.
Okay.
And maybe Facebook, I guess.
Okay, I'll look on Facebook.
I don't know if it's on Facebook. I didn't add it to Facebook. I guess I was feeling a little bit, it really shifted from what I thought, and maybe I should have said that sooner, and I tried to via email, but the survey itself shifted substantially from what we had talked about and kind of agreed upon, and I don't know what that, kind of where that process happened, and maybe if we had like Jason was saying, kind of these target areas, maybe like separate it out, like one's COVID response, one's more safety or neighborhood, stuff of, what we can do and people are feeling lacking of for in our neighborhood or what, because maybe I misunderstood. I kind of thought it was so we could know where to focus our efforts. Did you feel that way too, Dan? Or when we,
Yes, I would say that the survey felt a little generalized. And I don't think we got, well, I'd be curious to hear what Jason has seen so far in the results, but it did get a little bit generalized. It wasn't, because I guess thinking about what we do as a neighborhood association, it's about how can we impact and serve everyone in the neighborhood.
mhm.
And that felt more like, the survey felt a little bit more like a, I can't find the words right now. I don't know, it was reflective, of course, but it didn't really ask for action.
Yeah, I think, and that would be interesting information to have sort of as its own piece, maybe while we have, I don't know how we would approach it, have Jason, we kind of, I don't know, recreate the wheel. You're here for, you're like, is it 3 months or what was your time period with us?
I have the whole 3 trimesters with Centennial, so the whole school year.
Oh, we could use it. We've got a lot to do. Maybe we let this one run its course and then do another survey that's more pointed from like what Dan, like combining that information of maybe what people are saying, and we can then pinpoint it down with your help of some bullet points and more specifics that are just clicking boxes instead of experiences.
Also, I sent the link again through chats, and this time I made sure that you could open it. So if you still want to fill out the survey, they're inside the chat. They're separated by English and Spanish, and they're both stated, so they won't be confused. Yes, I think that. But for the information that, I don't know how much time I have to speak on this topic, but for what I've seen within, as a person who has to transcribe the information from the physical forms to the online versions, it takes a lot, most of the surveys that were taken on physically weren't 100% completed. So they either skip some questions or they checked the check marks, but never filled out any of the other information like their zip code or their email or any information that was kind of important for the survey. So that if that was one of the questions asked at me, that's my response.
Kind of what you would improve upon it in that sense, maybe make it a required area or something. Field.
Well, I have not worked with surveys that much, but I probably do, well, as I stated prior, get the information, see the ones that are most important for the community, at least through the surveys that we've gotten so far, and make those into the much more easily digestible check marks or check boxes.
Okay, that sounds like a great plan.
Sorry, Jessica, you've been waiting. a
Sorry.
while.
Oh, no, no worries. I took me a second to realize where the raise your hand thing was. I finally found it. I was just gonna say, I haven't been part of your guys' conversations about the origins of the survey, but I did see the survey and I pulled it out and I saw it on the CCA's Facebook is where I found it. But I was gonna say, like, part of, like, I did fill it out, but like part of my impression as being someone who wasn't part of your initial conversations was just that it did seem very COVID focused. And so I filled it out like as best as I could. But then like my concerns for like our neighborhood specifically are like less, even though like some of the issues are definitely exacerbated by COVID, like the like COVID response, I guess I wouldn't really categorize kind of like my specific concerns.
Mhm.
So that was just like a kind of an outsider's perspective.
Yeah, that's good feedback. I think I did the paper one at the Rosewood Center. So I don't know. So yeah, like maybe that's, what do you think, Dan? You think we kind of do what Jason's thinking and take in that feedback and sort of maybe revamp one for different focus a little bit, or take some of those points and redo it in a way?
Yeah, I'm all for that. Let's see. Robert, go ahead and speak.
Yeah, hi.
Sorry.
So I found it in the messages while you guys were talking, and I just read through it, and I mean, agreed. I don't see a single thing in that survey about homeless, parking, or crime. And maybe that's just my perspective, but that's the most important thing to me right now in this neighborhood. So I'm kind of surprised that that's a pretty large hole for what we're dealing with in the neighborhood right now. So not criticizing, just agreeing with what's been said.
Mhm.
One thing I was gonna add, sorry, Teresa.
No, go ahead. I'm horrible at raising my hand, so go ahead.
I was just gonna add, like, I used to have to do surveys as part of like a couple different jobs I've had in the past. And like one thing, I don't know if this might be already what you guys have planned, but like one thing I've done is like you have those, kind of more checkbox questions as far as like, categories to kind of narrow it down. But then when you do leave those open-ended questions for people to just write whatever they want, that then reading through, you can kind of like codify those by looking for like similar responses or similar categories. And in doing that, you can kind of quantify like, how, even if it's something as simple as like however many times like homelessness is mentioned, in a certain fashion, like you can kind of start to create some categories that way to kind of quantify it more.
Jessica, you are so right, because that's what I thought when I first saw the survey. Since I've done surveys before too, and had to put the material together. If you ask the pointed questions first with the boxes, then allow some narrative if they want, then we'd be getting what we want.
I don't know where to raise my hand, actually. Do I do it under? So I'll just
You
keep
don't
talking.
have to.
I think we'd lost, I feel like
Yeah.
we lost track, and I think that we need to spend some time coming back. And for me personally, I think the emails going back and forth got really confusing, and it was great when we were at Gail's house or whoever's house it was, sitting there with paper and pen, and if we could probably do that again, and that's probably what we need to do to go back, because we had gone through a survey that we had last year, was it? And then kind of went through kind of like what you're talking about, Jessica. So maybe we need to regroup and do another focus on that. It would be good. And so, and I can put some time into that. I think I personally let the ball drop, sort of lost momentum there.
It's okay. It's COVID. We all have lots going on. And I'm glad that we got this together and we kind of started asking questions, but yeah, we've found ways that we can all improve in making this survey a little bit better. I wonder if another way to kind of increase the efficacy of the current survey is to sit down with neighbors and kind of talk through it as they fill it out. Because it's interesting. You don't want to give your life story to a form, but if there's a human there willing to participate with you and willing to hear your story, that changes it. But then of course that brings up that, well, we're only going to reach out to people that we probably know pretty well that are on the same block as us, and not necessarily going out there to get the most accurate story from the population at large. So
yeah.
Yes.
Well, in the interest of time, it's already 6:23. We've only got about less than 40 minutes left. First of all, I want to say thank you, Jason, for coming to share with us the latest results and kind of give us a little bit of an update. But I think we should move on to talk about our community safety discussion, because I think we're at a point where over the previous public meetings, we've had different representatives from the city and from the county talk to us about what they're doing. And, over the past month or so, we've had discussions as a board to talk about, what do we need as a community, and can we actually go to the city and the county asking for realistic, achievable things in order to help us move forward as a community. And so originally I figured we might have more people at this meeting. So I was going to, suggest breakout groups, and we would kind of take notes, and then we would come back together and at the end of the meeting and kind of share notes. But clearly it's a small enough meeting tonight that I would be happy with us brainstorming as a group to come up with different, specific issues, along with specific things the city can do to help us in order to move forward. So I guess at this point, I would say everybody feel free to unmute, and I'm going to go ahead and take notes. But is there, what things can the city and the county do to help us?
In which are we talking safety or?
Well, in previous emails, I'm going to try to find that. Of course, there's community safety. There's nuisance properties, illegal businesses. Garbage, yep.
And I think even camping or homeless folks on the street.
Add like needles and just sidewalk clearance.
And Jessica, I know that you have, you focus around 162nd and Division
Mhm.
in all directions or certain?
Honestly, it's kind of in all directions. So, like the monthly trash pickup I do with Solve, we meet at that auto zone that's 164th in Division. And so I could get anywhere between 5 to, this last time I had 15 volunteers this past Saturday. And I just sort of send them in different directions. And sometimes I like let them know if there's a couple hot spots. Like I know the Aaron's at 162nd is a big spot for dumping. The movie theater, we get tons and tons of needles from the movie theater. And I've talked to the manager of the movie theater, and she's like at her wit's end because she's so understaffed and has teenagers working for her, and it's not even safe to send them outside because there's been some violence in the parking lot. So she doesn't even feel safe sending the kids out to clean the parking lot. So it's kind of
As
like
for
whichever
her first
direction.
name,
For her first name,
is it Kelly?
I think it started with an L. I thought it was like either
Okay.
Lisa or Linda.
All right.
Yeah, I can't remember. She's super nice though.
Gotcha.
But yeah, my group goes in any direction, but we're all on foot and then like getting just bags and then bringing it back to my car basically. So it's very
All back to you.
it's very low key.
Mhm.
So, I have a question. So where do you put the garbage then? Thought it was in a dumpster.
Yeah, so AutoZone volunteered to be our Solve business partner, which is awesome. If you guys need car stuff, definitely go to that AutoZone. And so they basically let us use some of their dumpster space. And if it's like too much, sometimes I'll go and bring some over to the movie theater because she also said that it was okay to put it there. And then honestly, like I do have one other dumpster that I sometimes put stuff in that I haven't actually asked the business yet, which I probably need to. But the dumpster is like completely like there's like needles and peed on mattresses and stuff. So I'm just like, I don't think they're monitoring it too closely. They'll probably appreciate if we're actually cleaning this up.
So from my perspective, what we should be, I mean, this Solve doesn't pay for it, the businesses are, right?
Yeah, so Solve just provides the supplies, but the dumpsters all own the
I got it.
business.
Okay, so that would be a question for this, for the city. Can you supply dumpsters with Solve's cleanup, since it seems that the businesses are doing it free will, I mean, donating.
Yeah.
And we might be able to do more of it if we had, dumpsters available at certain places. I know I drive Division all the time, and there's one down, not quite to 174th, somewhere in there, a whole empty lot with all kinds of stuff in it. Could be a place to go. So if we're asking for the city, that's one ask I would say. What do you think? You're the one doing it. I usually schedule this on days I can't come, so.
Yeah, I think it would be huge because one challenge you have, like Aaron's is a really good example. They lock their dumpster because there's been a camp and there's been a lot of like really messy, smelly trash. But because the people experiencing homelessness can't get into the dumpster because it's locked, they tend to just leave it outside. So if there was an alternative dumpster that people could put stuff in, that would be helpful and it wouldn't put the burden on the business too. I know Aaron's is frustrated because, neighbors, even me, I've complained about like this, dumping, and then Aaron's actually gets fined. So, the businesses kind of face the consequences even when they haven't, like, they're not the ones, putting the trash there. So the dumpster would be huge. I think the other thing, like, I don't know if the city would ever have resources for this, but, I've been really frustrated with the whole reporting tools, like depending on where the trash is, what type of trash, how the trash originated, there's all these different contact points. If they could consolidate that to one, so it doesn't matter if it's a abandoned camp, if it's illegal dumping, if it's a car part, like I think that would be cool. Like I was brainstorming with my husband the other day. I was saying like, the tool is kind of hard to use. Like if they had even something easier, like just a phone number, so someone who's less tech savvy could call. And then for like younger folks, like if they had an Instagram account, so we could just snap a picture and put the cross streets, like something like that would be really cool.
And so that reporting form, what department is it out of?
I don't even know is a thing. And there's like the PDX reporter, I think is supposed to be geared towards specifically like abandoned camps, is my understanding. But then there's other things for like illegal dumping, quote unquote, that they
Oh, okay.
segregate that out. And then, you know, I've really struggled with, okay, there's a car with no doors and no wheels versus there's a bunch of, you know, just strewn garbage. Like sometimes it's unclear of where to report it. So if they had like truly one point of contact and made it easier to access, I think that would help a lot.
But we should be able to take those to the city commissioners
Mhm.
and figure it, you know. I mean, you've got Hardesty's ear a little bit.
I don't know about that.
That certainly is not a county job unless it gets into vector control. And then the county, that's where they would go. So,
Yeah, and I don't know what you guys think about this, but the other thing I've been really concerned about is just needles from a safety perspective. Like I totally get it from an adult public health perspective, that things like the needle exchange are great because we want to prevent disease. But then like it's made me question how the needle exchange works. Like I've been a big advocate of needle exchange for years, but it's making me wonder, like, you know, are we just giving out needles and then they end up on the street? Like, could we alter the model where it truly is like you have to like give a used one back in order to get a new one, you know, something like that, or put more boxes somewhere. Just I don't even know how it works necessarily. I just see so many needles everywhere.
yeah, we do on our church property too. And you do have the boxes to put them in, right? And you collect them. Yeah.
Yeah, so Solve provides them and then I just bring them back in. I think they bring them outside in or something.
Or, well, I don't know what they do with them.
Yeah, they do something with them. Like
There's also metric and you can take them to.
yeah.
Okay, that's one. Anyone else?
Yeah, this is Robert. I think what would be beneficial to me is if, or the most beneficial would be if Portland Parks would enforce the code on their own property and keep people from camping and dumping and living on their properties or their property at 150th and Division. You know, there's ongoing camp there. It's been there for, I don't know, just under 2 years, I think. Multiple fires,
Oh,
you know,
yes. Yeah.
lots of coming and going, and that's right behind my house. So, you know, we have no sense of safety. We're literally at their whim. And by them, I mean the people that live out there, as to how high they are, how, you know, what trouble they want to cause. And the city does not seem interested in moving them along, or after there's a fire, they're not interested in cleaning it up. The best they'll do is come out and take pictures, and then the staff moves along.
So we had Jessica and led something for channel, which channel was it? 2?
Oh,
Are you part of those neighbors? There was a couple of them there. I'm just trying.
yeah, I didn't recognize Jessica, but Heidi, I live with Heidi. Yeah. So she was
Okay.
also part of that, I believe. I mean, she was part of something, but I'm sure that's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to add that this is Lori, and I live next door to Robert and Heidi, that the community garden situation is only supposed to be open April through October, and there is no reason for that gate to be unlocked now. And I was hoping that police officer would stay longer, but I see that he's signed off already. And I don't understand why nobody, as easy as it would be for someone to come over and put locks on those gates. We have a new homeless person who has strewn her stuff across the sidewalk now, and it's probably a house length long. I have no idea how somebody in her condition brought all that stuff over there. And we just, you know, we wake up in the morning and people are over going through the trash pile where it burned.
Oh,
And it's all behind a gate. Which,
should be
you know,
locked.
it's locked in front of my house because I monitor it. And, but I don't understand why Park Bureau isn't over there. You know, it's a simple fix. Put a lock on it.
Lock it and enforce it. You know, in theory, you know, there's nobody's supposed to be on those properties during certain hours. And, you know, some parks have signage and it seems to be enforced, but that property, you know, I think it's out of sight, out of mind, and nobody really pays much attention to it.
Well, it's not. Go ahead. It's not a park now, so they can ignore it. They've rented part of it to TriMet.
Right.
Yeah, I live by that. Okay. Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess if we wanted to, as a board or something, and Dan, you can help me, bring this to Portland Parks as one of our major issues, if this is what citizens in this particular area are frustrated about, and find out the commissioner for that, and I forget who that is. But yeah, it sounds like we should have a lock on that gate. Because I drove over there after that last discussion that we had at the news thing, just to see where they lived.
Mhm.
Where you guys were, because you're not far from me, so. Okay. I guess, and for me personally, all of this is extremely important, especially the garbage, because there's garbage right by Fred Meyer's on the other side of it too, on 144th. That's really bad. I'm concerned about safety. And safety in terms of gun shootings out here, deaths out here, and safety building on our first speakers, safety about pedestrians and cars just driving, and how unsafe it can feel at a lot of times as things change on Division Street in particular. So I just want to throw that out.
Well, I think, I'm not sure if it happened by last time, but even there is a white panel van that's parked there with 2 inhabitants. And he had a stolen vehicle, and police came out and got the stolen vehicle back and did not arrest them because the female had a child that she doesn't have custody of, but visits her occasionally. So they decided not to arrest her. And so the male inhabitant came and parked himself over in front of the gate and sat there with his cell phone, waiting to come and threaten me when I came outside.
Oh,
So, you know, this is, and anytime something happens over there where maybe he gets cited or something else, he assumes that I have reported him.
oh dear.
So he comes over and vandalizes my fence. So, and this would stop if that gate was locked.
Because they couldn't get in there.
Right, he can't walk across the
Maybe.
field.
One thing I was going to let you guys know about, I did hear another report back from K2 News that they're going to do a town hall on gun violence this Thursday. And what they're doing is they're going to have 3 panelists, one of whom's from the police, one of whom is a woman who lost her son, who leads, I think, a community organization, and then someone else, I think, who does like gang outreach work. But they're going to have, you know, different people who do like gang prevention and stuff like that. But they're looking for more neighbors just to speak up about their concerns around gun violence specifically. So the lady from K2 actually asked me if there was other folks who wanted to attend. So I'll put her email in the chat box. She's looking for either people who want to come or for people who have questions to submit.
Okay.
But I'll put the email and then just a little bit of info about what the event will look like in the chat box. Unfortunately, there's no city commissioners coming.
Yeah, and regarding that garbage pile on 144th, just west of Fred Meyer.
Yeah.
The one on the west side of the street where there's not any tents, but I think that's some couches and
Yeah.
a tarp or two. I think that's a school bus stop, and those kids have to stand in that area to catch their buses. And for as frustrating as all of this is to us or me as an adult, it's a shame that, you know, a bunch of kids have to endure and be exposed to that every day. They really don't need that. Because you don't know who's going to be there. You don't know who's going to be, you know, I drive by there and there's people sleeping and hanging out on those couches.
Yeah.
Doing whatever they're doing. So it's unbelievable that the city lets that happen. And I don't know, maybe Portland schools, maybe that's something they should get involved in. I wonder if they know.
It would be Centennial over there. I mean,
Oh, that's right.
so, you know, if you have a question, I've seen it, I haven't. Maybe you want to call the school and see if there is a bus stop there. That's down the street from that. No, that's not. That other school's on 148, excuse me. Because if they are in fact waiting there, then it seems like the parents would be.
Yeah.
in touch with someone. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of frustrated people in this city right now that, you know, all you have to do is watch the news any night and they're in a different neighborhood and the story's always the same. You know, we have this problem, the city points fingers, and then the last thing the interviewee says is we're moving. we want to move.
Well, have any of you been watching the increase in money that's coming into the city and what they plan to do with it between the county and the city?
So the vote's supposed to be tomorrow, I think, is what I heard. And I went and I did testimony last week at their like hearing thing. But yeah, like it was really interesting because like it was interesting because there weren't that many just kind of regular people there. It seemed like everyone was there kind of representing like some sort of nonprofit or something.
Yeah.
So the reviews were very mixed, like there's like a few business owners and stuff, but most folks were like really advocating, you know, kind of for their specific cause.
I'll jump in. Hi. Sorry, I came a few minutes late. I guess there was an officer who came before the meeting started.
Well, he was a traffic control officer, but yeah, or crash person. Yeah. Go ahead, David.
Right on. Well, yeah, David Lynn, I'm on the Centennial School Board. And yes, we've talked with some other directors about this issue, but we haven't had any complaints from any parents.
Oh.
Because David, I was hearing from like, I posted something on Nextdoor a little while ago, and there were people who were like, you know, sharing with me like, you know, I had to get my 10-year-old a cell phone. I'm terrified to leave him at the bus stop by himself. Like people are definitely freaking out. Maybe they just don't realize how to talk to the school about it.
Yeah, it is my experience. People are not very experienced at submitting public comment, but we always encourage them to do so. And we're always looking for how to bring resources to this community, of course, to deal with this situation, to find locations here in the neighborhood where we can dedicate resources to getting people off the street, getting the RVs off the sidewalks, getting trash picked up. But I'm really interested in finding resources where we can actually do a positive reaction to some of these things, and not just think that we can sweep them into somebody else's neighborhood and somebody isn't going to sweep them into our neighborhood, and just do this long carousel of homeless people around the city, wasting a whole lot of resources in the process. So we certainly need to do something differently when it comes to the homeless. And that comes hopefully with a lot of resources. Like you said, the city and the county are doing a lot better financially. And also we have to have community policing, and we can't have that until we have police accountability.
Thank you for sharing, David. I'm curious to know if there's any sort of initiative within the CSD about working with the community and also kind of impacting the police. If there's any discussions going on, and I ask because I'm not aware of everything that's going on in the world.
Absolutely. I've had conversations with people about targeted cleanups to help people just clean up the garbage, like people said, about around bus stops or pathways where a lot of students are walking along. And then we've had conversations about just having volunteers, maybe doing walking with groups of students. There's been talk about, especially around the bus shortage. You might have heard that there's a shortage of bus drivers. So school districts have been struggling with that issue. So some people have been trying to think outside the box about kind of walking school buses, where you have adults walking groups of students to encourage them to walk more and travel more in alternative transportation methods. So there's a lot of different things that are being kind of thrown around. I kind of like the idea of having volunteers, walking groups of students, if they can be doing it with in conjunction with the school district, and make sure that they're vetted volunteers, that they're not just anybody who hasn't been background checked or anything like that, just kind of getting in there. So there's conversations, but no solid plans yet. There's also, we also want to try to work with Safe Routes to School, which is a nonprofit.
David, can I ask, what is a school district's responsibility where I live? We're close to David Douglas, we're close to a Catholic school, and we're close to a Montessori school. So there we have schools that aren't really Centennial related, but this trash school safety kids out there cross over into different districts. Do you ever hear if there's a combined effort or a process where we can reach out to a different school instead of Centennial?
I'm not sure on the last part of that question, but I would say that the new members on the school board are trying to do some more of that long-term planning. For example, there's surplus property that the school district owns in the district that I actually wasn't even aware of. And sometimes they're actually substantial properties. And they usually just have this narrow focus of only worrying about the school district and only worrying about what they are legally liable for. And that to answer your question, so they don't usually have kind of a holistic approach to the community or like a long-term approach. It's kind of usually just kind of what's right in front of their face. And the new board members are trying to change that culture.
So are you saying that the school district has surplus property?
Yeah, in fact, there was just one was discussed. If you're familiar with the Timbers, the T2 practice or the T2 soccer field on 170, I want to say 172nd past Powell.
Is it on 174th instead?
maybe
Oh,
174th.
okay. Yeah, we drive by it all the time.
Right next to there is a big empty lot
Oh.
that was originally purchased as a surplus bus lot that never ended up being used. And they're interested in selling it off as surplus property. And in my opinion, first off, they didn't put it out for public bidding. They just kind of put it out for private bidding. They got one offer from the Timbers, which in my mind was a pretty low ball offer considering what we paid for it.
Uh-huh.
So I'm still kind of pushing back on that idea of kind of just giving it up, but that's just an example.
Do you mean the bid comes in at a loss?
It's not a loss like a straight across loss. I think we paid, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we paid like 120,000 or no, like 1.2 million for it, and they want to pay like 1.4 million for it.
Right. Okay. So it's not an actual loss, but it's a market loss. Like they're
Right.
coming in.
Yeah, we're given 20 years of appreciation or property going up, and especially that it wasn't put out publicly. I don't like anything that's not done completely above board, and especially when it comes to public property. I definitely want us to have a larger conversation about not just what's good for the school district, what's good for the larger community visioning in the long term.
Agreed.
Because I think a lot, like as somebody said, all these agencies love to just point fingers at each other. They like to say it's not our responsibility, it's somebody else's, and the other people say it's not our responsibility, it's somebody else's. So we're trying to say, if it's at least at our level at the school district, how can we change that, and how can we incorporate community into their decisions?
That's good to hear.
This is kind of random, but David, just since you're from the school board, I heard another complaint on Nextdoor the other day from someone who was saying that there was some security guard at Centennial High School who called a group of Black students cotton pickers. And there was a big like Nextdoor debate, about whether or not this really happened, what the follow-up has been. But this was yet another example of people like having a lot of strong opinions. But then it was unclear to me if anyone had actually like talked to the school and like reported this incident, if this incident did indeed happen. So I'm just mentioning it in case there's like a specific spot where that would be reported, that you can let us know. So if we see something like that on Nextdoor, we can let neighbors know.
Definitely. I'm trying to get my email up on the board's website so people can reach out. Traditionally, the board has been pretty closed off. And so sending in public comment is the only way, and they kind of make you do it the Tuesday prior to the meeting. Just one second, I'm kind of looking at my email. I'm making sure that I don't want to give up anything confidential. But yeah, it looks like there was a statement. It should have been sent out to high school parents and students that it was brought to their attention. It is an ongoing investigation, and that staff member has been placed on leave.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
And if I can share anything in the future, as soon as it's not confidential or as soon as decisions have been made public, I'd be happy to share that.
Okay, great. I'm glad to hear there was follow-up.
Great. And I really do encourage people, don't assume somebody else is submitting comment. Please submit comment. We really don't get a lot, and we could really use some.
All right, thank you, everyone. I just want to be cognizant of the schedule this evening. We've had a lot of great feedback about different issues and happenings going on in our neighborhood, and I think I've come away with a list of, I don't know, 12 to 14 different things that we can really nail down as very specific issues that we're looking for assistance from the city but also the county about. And so over the next week, the Centennial Community Board will kind of author this into more of an official document. But I want to thank everyone for showing up tonight, kind of contributing to everything. And we know it's a challenging environment right now, but we also recognize that we need to ask for more. And part of that is this meeting, just to ask for specific things that the city can do to support us. So please look forward to that in the next week or two. We'll share that on Facebook, we'll share that on MailChimp, and we can also post it to our website. And then we'll be forwarding that to city leaders. So unless there are any final comments tonight, I want to thank you all for attending and contributing a little bit of time from your week, and wish you well, be well, and stay safe, and we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you guys so much. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye.